Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to CIO Leadership Live. I'm Mary Fran Johnson, your host and a contributing columnist on CIO.com. Twice a month, we produce CIO Leadership Live with the support of CIO.com and our friends at the CIO Executive Council. We're streaming live right now to you on LinkedIn and on Twitter, and we welcome any of our viewers who are joining us live for this conversation to send in your questions. We'll be watching for those during the show and doing our best to answer them. I'm very pleased today to be joined by a very longtime friend of ours at CIO, Stuart Kippelman, who is the CIO of Parsons Corporation. Stuart joined Parsons in January of last year, where he is leading all of the IT strategy and operations work, plus the ongoing digital business transformation. His experience in global transformation, business intelligence, data mining, and cloud computing are all central to advancing the mission of Parsons and its commercial offerings to its customers. Parsons, in case you haven't heard of it, is a $4 billion Virginia-based government IT services contractor that employs about 20,000 people around the world. Its customer base adds up into the thousands, and it spans federal, regional, and local governments, as well as private industrial customers. About half of Parsons' business is devoted to managing and designing and implementing critical infrastructure, such as city rail systems, bridges, and those airport security screening systems that we all enjoy using so much when we can travel. Before Parsons, Stuart held CIO roles at Platform Specialty Products Group, and before that at Covanta Energy Corporation. And before that, he held a number of IT leadership and business roles at Johnson & Johnson. Over the years, Stuart's IT leadership has earned him and his technology teams multiple industry awards, including several of our own CIO 100 awards for innovation. He is a great believer in giving back, so he currently serves as a career mentor, both for Columbia University's Executive Master of Science in Technology Management program and for our own CIO Executive Council, where he is a mentor in the Pathways program. And like so many of our guests here on CIO Leadership Live, Stuart is an accomplished speaker and who has spent much of his career helping companies transform their businesses with technology. He's also what I consider a deep tech CIO. He comes from a deep technical background, and he holds multiple patents in data mining and business intelligence. As he likes to put it, I believe if the technology doesn't exist, invent it. Welcome, Stuart. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm thrilled to be with you today.
Okay. Well, it's always a pleasure talking with you too. Let's dive in and talk about disruption and the COVID crisis and what kind of an impact that is having on the landscape of government service contractors and IT services providers. Tell us what you're seeing out there now and what kind of an impact this is having on Parsons.
Yeah, I mean, like everyone, this thing kind of happened overnight, and we all woke up one day and said, "Everybody go home."
Yeah.
And right, that's pretty much what we did.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the impact that has spans it touches every aspect of our company, of the communities that we're in. We're very big at giving back and veteran organizations and just a social, so having a positive social impact, right? So
Yes.
We put together we immediately decided, oh my God, we have hundreds and hundreds of people that connect at night remotely, and we needed to make that the entire company.
Right.
So and we'll talk about that. But after you get past that unbelievably tactical response, you realize that our number one priority is employees. Our number two is making sure the communities are okay, right? And then three, you realize, well, we really have to make sure that once we know we're safe and healthy, how do we keep our customers going and maintain our business, right? So we put together like a cross-functional group of we did it within a day. I mean, it was quite amazing how fast we were able to do it. A
Mhm.
cross-functional group that looked at every aspect of the company and the impact, and from just like everyone else, from policies and procedures um, how do we get it? How do we get everybody headsets to use? So
Right. And you had a
yeah,
lot of you have a lot of engineers on your staff, people that were used to working with big complex CAD workstations,
right,
computer
right.
design. And I thought what was impressive about your story was that the average remote access capability was maybe 2 to 300 people a night, and you essentially had to take that to 20,000.
Yeah, I mean, Parsons is a very in-person company, and that now that it sounds a little uh, bad today, but just a few months ago it was not, and
Mhm.
um, so we flew around a lot of places. We wanted to be with customers. I spent a lot of my time visiting. We have IT staff in many locations
Mhm.
around the world, and you want to go visit people and shake hands and let them know how important they are and solve problems. And overnight it changes. You can't do that anymore. And hopefully we get back to something that's more reminiscent of where we were than where we are.
Right.
um, but you realize that everything, I mean, even down to uh, standing desks and ergonomic chairs of people that are going to be at home all day long. you
Right.
know can they take a chair home? You have some really basic logistical issues that we have to deal with. And
Right.
it was and with all that going on, the world of IT doesn't change. It's just another system, it's another upgrade. We have to make sure that we're safe and protected, and we're not introducing more risk to the
Right.
environment.
Yeah.
So it just becomes much more challenging when everybody's remote.
Well, and I think what a lot of because I've had a very many similar conversations with your CIO colleagues over the last few months, and I think what a lot of business leaders especially came to realize very early on that all of that digital transformation and all those upgrades and things that companies were doing that CIOs were spending money on over the last 3 to 5 years,
Yeah.
that there was a huge payback, essentially, that the kind of things we're able to do now in 2020 were not necessarily what we could have done in 2015.
Oh, that's absolutely true. And last year, to your point, last year Parsons started on a digital transformation
Yeah.
that we have been aggressively transforming our company, our business processes, our procedures. We're implementing better tools. We're migrating, as much as we can into cloud environments, and the translation of that is when things are in the cloud, that means they're available everywhere.
Hmm.
And well, when COVID happened, we had a lot of work to do, obviously, same as everybody else did. But
Hmm.
we were well down the path of our digital transformation starting the prior year.
Yeah.
So while we turned on a dime and reprioritized a number of projects to be able to have everyone working remotely, we
Mhm.
weren't starting from scratch. That this is your point. We weren't starting from scratch. We weren't having to explain the value of remote access, right? You
Right.
know, why should we upgrade this thing? Everybody's, I can imagine a company 6 months ago saying, yeah, that 18-year-old remote access stuff, it works. It meets our needs. We don't have to do the upgrade. And then
Why should we fix it? Yeah.
yeah, 18 years ROI, right? Let's go for 19.
Yeah.
So, but Parsons being a high tech company,
Mhm.
the leadership is fantastic, and there's no justification of what to do. It's how do we do it? What's
I
the right? You can't spend all the money in one year, right? Obviously, and what's the right priority? And let's do the right thing for our customers. And
Mhm. Well,
uh, yeah,
one of the points that you made too about the speed of the response and the way IT was able to adapt to this was also that it wasn't all about remote access gear, but that there was a huge amount of an integration challenge to it. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's not about remote access, right? Let's start there, right? Remote access is just one of the tools.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's kind of the first line
It's
defense that people touch.
pipe there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right. But it's not about that. As a matter of fact, early on in our project, we changed the wording, from work from home to work from anywhere. So we now call it work from anywhere
Mhm.
because if you think about it, um, people may not be at home anymore. People are, in the world where you can uh, truly work remote, and we're trying to get, we're trying to shift our company, just like, we do a lot of benchmarking and talking to other companies, and everyone's doing the same thing. No
Mhm.
one knows what the right percentage is, but we're trying to get a lot of people out of offices,
Yeah.
both for flexibility. There's a lot of benefits to it.
Mhm.
There's the flexibility of it. There's the benefit of being able to hire someone that's anywhere. So
Yeah.
it opens up the hiring market for a company like ours dramatically.
Mhm.
Obviously, you can't eliminate everyone from an office, right? I think that would be bad too.
Yeah.
But you got to find the right balance.
Mhm.
And but just like everyone else, we have legacy technologies, and those technologies are harder to access from anywhere
Mhm.
um, than a SaaS-based solution that you might purchase today. So the integration of everything and the value, I think, the real value of IT is not just that I can implement the technology, but that I can implement it in a way that becomes as invisible to the users as possible.
Mhm.
And at Parsons, we sell a lot of technology products.
Mhm.
So we've really spent a lot of time on making sure that IT, not IT is aligned, but that's if we're not aligned, that we're all in a lot of trouble, right? So IT is very aligned with the business and what we do, and we really are just part of the business. It's not a matter of discussing alignment anymore.
Yeah.
But what we've done is we've greatly scaled up our focus on our customers and their IT departments.
Mhm.
So and that's because if we take a piece of technology and give it to a customer, it may be a fantastic technology. What does the customer do? They turn to the IT department and say, "How do we integrate this?"
Yeah.
So you're right. It comes around in a circle, right? So we're trying to stay as close as we can with customers related to all those integrations.
Mhm.
And within Parsons, as an example, back to your point, you have these brilliant engineers working on incredible projects that really change society, right?
Mhm.
And how do they work? Well, a lot of them took their machines home.
Yeah.
We actually sent these workstations home with people so they can do their work. But
Along with their
in a lot of cases,
right?
yeah, a lot of cases, these CAD files are just enormous.
Yeah.
And instead of having them in the cloud, we would have them on local servers in the facilities they worked on for performance reasons.
Mhm.
But now they're home, and even though they're in the same city potentially, they're going through many different hops to get to those files. So
Yeah.
it changes the way that we have to look at what integrating means.
Mhm.
And
Good point.
and one of my big projects and focuses is on user experience.
Mhm.
So I try to prioritize user experience above all else, which means everything from how they work to what they do to
Mhm.
how many clicks does it take them to submit an expense report. So
To how invisible can I make the IT?
exactly. So it's you can't disconnect the user experience from the invisible nature of what we're trying to do,
Right.
and that requires uh, really far exceeding expectations on integrations.
Ah, okay. Well, and
Yeah,
it's wonderful because the more invisible you can make technology delivery, the more people take it totally for granted
right.
until
And
some
look, we want everybody focused on our business, and we want them to take it for granted.
yeah. Well, and you mentioned, tell me, I mentioned in your intro that Parsons is an IT government services contractor, but a whole other half of your business is involved in a lot of these big projects, city rail systems, and that sort of thing. How do you manage those two hats as the CIO?
Uh, that's a daily question. That
The
that
balance of it all, yeah.
it is. So at its most basic level, we're probably not different than a lot of companies
Hmm.
that are in two different businesses, right? You have two different businesses, actually, it's really many different businesses. But I'm extremely generalizing to say two, right? One half of the company, like you said, is critical infrastructure, which
Hmm.
includes mobility, meaning rail and transit, and like you said, airports. Another is connected communities around uh, transportation,
Hmm.
traffic signals and roads and bridges and tunnels. And then you have just this industry expertise around construction and engineering, and um, just helping companies to be successful there, right?
Hmm.
Um, the other side of the company is a federal government. And that business is kind of split into defense and intelligence.
Hmm.
So we do a lot of work, a lot of amazing software, a lot of cybersecurity. So we're really pretty high tech, right? Now, those two sides have the same requirements for the general stuff, email and collaboration and file sharing and
Sure.
um, uh, uh, PCs and screens, and we can go on and on, right? So they have the very similar requirements. The problem is the regulatory aspects of both of those requirements are quite different. So, as you can imagine, the regulatory requirements for building a bridge is very different than working on a space or or missile defense project,
Of
right?
course. Yes.
And both are just as important to all of us. And so we will never do anything that's not within the proper regulatory requirements. We have a lot of people that make sure we do,
Hmm.
and we're proud of that, right? So that there's your business requirement. I have all this capability I need to do, but underlying two different sets of rules that we have to follow,
Yes.
and that creates two different um, almost two different parts of two different companies.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
and
it's not exactly black and white, but it's definitely different sets of needs on each side.
right, right. So, for example, where we have sensitive information, that side of the company has to be on a different email system than the commercial side of the company,
Okay.
right? So there are just physical separations that have to be in place to properly maintain what we do.
I,
Uh,
I
and the hard part is it, finding what middle ground is acceptable without adding risk to either side.
right.
So what can we work on together? Because we have a mission to be one company. Well, actually, we call it One Parsons.
Hmm.
So today we do have both sides of the company helping each other. So we want to act as one company, people wise,
Yeah,
but we can't be one company because of some of the rules that we follow.
because different rules and regulations have to apply. Uh,
Exactly. Right.
have quite a staff of
Look,
compliance people just keeping track of all of them.
that's right. And look, reality is to protect the information and people in our country. That's paramount,
Yeah,
right? We so everything else kind of comes secondary, but we continuously search for that middle ground and figuring out really some pretty innovative ways to try to solve some of those problems.
did the arrival of the pandemic cause any really notable shifts in your priorities in terms of I know CIOs always have a lineup of big business and tech initiatives they're working on. And I'm imagining, for instance, that the move to more video conferencing became a pretty much a number one concern. But was there anything that significantly shifted on your priority list about what we need to work on next or concurrently?
Well, I made fun of it earlier, but remote access was not really my number one priority. Um,
Sure as heck is now, right?
it sure is. If a few hundred people can't log in because the thing crashed, I mean, it would stink, but we live, right?
Right.
Now, if that same system fails, the whole company's out of business. So, uh,
No,
it
no pressure.
no, it's just another day.
Yeah.
It changed the way that that we think as a company. Um, it did. It changed our priority
Hmm.
to be um, focused on. So I'll walk you through. So initially, we uh, we said, "Oh my God, everybody's going home," and this is our capacity for remote access, and what are we going to do?
Hmm.
And we put together, I mean, the IT team did it and did an incredible job. Everyone who might be listening from Parsons, you deserve the credit. And The leadership, our leadership was fantastic in giving us the ability to react quickly.
Hmm.
So no presentations, no status updates on where you are, and no, just go, just
Yeah.
make it happen, right? So, and I think, and that says a lot about the leadership, their trust in IT, and
Mhm.
it says a lot about IT's ability to deliver. And
Mhm.
um, it's an incredibly great partnership. That's the most important thing. We were always on the same page,
Yeah.
and that after a few weeks, we literally did 6 months of projects in 2.5 weeks, right?
Wow.
It's and how do you do that? Well, it's the ultimate agile project. We pretty much stop people from doing everything else,
Yes.
and it's amazing when you could put 3 and 4 times the amount of people on a project, how fast it can get done.
A friend of mine, a CEO out in one of the Silicon Valley companies, used to talk about all the wood behind one arrowhead.
That's true, right?
Yeah.
It's very true, and another a side conversation, but it's made us rethink about how do we staff work. What if we did much less at a time and put a lot more people on it,
Oh. Yeah.
right? So we're thinking of it. It's not DevOps, it's not Agile, it's pieces of both of it.
Yeah.
And
We had talked originally about when we get into more about how you've got IT organized, you talked about thinking about a DevOps model for
yeah,
IT as a whole,
yeah,
not
yeah.
for the application development part of things.
And being organized like that helped us a lot. So
Oh,
we'll talk about it, but we organized IT like a DevOps project. That we took the silos of where different groups did different things, and we consolidated them. So a manager has end-to-end accountability for what they manage. And picking on the PC, if you adopt a model that's not good and the image on it that was built is not great, guess what? Support's going to go up and increase.
right.
So if you're responsible for that whole thing, you're going to see the quality go up of, not by anyone's fault, but just you're going to see the quality go up on the PC selection and the image building and the support. And, it's kind of, you own your own fate kind of deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that and being organized like that helped us to very much not just reprioritize, like I said, but we instead of having 4 people on this remote access project, we had 30,
Wow.
and we were able to very quickly get there. Right. So once you get past that, going back to your question, once you get past that, we shifted everything to now to not be remote access, but remote productivity.
Yes, yes, and I know we're going to talk a lot more about
Correct.
that. I to interrupt us just for a second.
Yeah.
Say welcome to anyone who is joining us. This is CIO Leadership Live. I'm here talking with the Parsons Corporation CIO, Stu Kippelman, and we are about to launch into our first question from the audience. Thank you. If you're listening live and would like to send in a question, please do, because Stu, well, he'll know the answer to it. I guarantee it. So here's our first stumper, Stu. It's knowing what you know now and what we've just been talking about. Do you think Parsons is more adequately prepared for the next pandemic or whatever it is that will drive work back into the work from anywhere?
I can honestly say, no doubt, we are more prepared as a corporate entity.
Yes.
So we have not just fixed the technology aspects, but we have put in place different policies and procedures.
Mm-hmm.
We have shifted around. We hope many thousands of employees will work from home, and going forward, and that in turn changes the way that you think about this. So we are absolutely prepared tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
If our CEO and board makes the call that we're going to work remote again, we go right back to the way we were, and I am confident that no projects would be affected. Now, with that said, you can't always speak for our customers, but I also think that the business side of our company, has always been focused on the customer and is really well prepared. What we've learned, is really well prepared to support the customer in this new normal environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because all their needs changed, and then we now sell products that help COVID in our core areas.
Yes.
So, for example, you mentioned the airports. We now make a product called DetectWise, that is mobile apps that you log into. Let's say you're going to a facility, not just airport, but any company. Let's say you're going to a facility to visit, or you work there. You install the app on your phone. You answer some questions. It gives you a QR code. You get up to a kiosk and the entryway. You scan your QR code. It checks your temperature and gives you a clear and not clear.
Yes.
And that's all integrated into the systems of the customer. And you'll see those kind of things everywhere. But we're now focused on products that help companies be successful in this new world. So I can say honestly that not only are we prepared from the operational side, but from the management thinking and how we react to things, to the products that we sell. So it's a great story. Honestly, I had many great opportunities when I decided to join Parsons, and it continues to reinforce why I work here and love it. That everyone they just get it, and the customers are great, and it's a great story.
Well, and you had mentioned earlier, I think we both have a similar dislike of the idea that IT needs to align with business strategy. Way back when I was back when I was editor-in-chief at Computer World, I would give talks about it, and I would call alignment the scarlet A for my theory being that if you weren't there at the strategy table when everything was being figured out, you're always running to catch up and somebody's having to tell you what the business strategy is.
That's it.
I was testing that concept with my CIOs, and I was like, am I just making this up? Or
you're not making it up. I still talk to people, and now and then I'll hear someone say our number one project this year is business alignment. And and it's like, so what are you doing now then?
You just want to shake them. Stop saying that.
You should stop anything that you're working on that the business doesn't want,
That's right. Well, you said that if you really give it the right attention, you can essentially get rid of alignment in a 24-hour period, because you
absolutely.
What's the business strategy? What are we? And if you,
I believe within 24 hours, maybe it's 48, but 24 to 48 hours, you can literally be, if you're not aligned to your business, you can do it that quickly.
And if they haven't figured that out, we'll have to just give everybody your direct number, and they.
I feel free. I'd love to take the white glove off and
Exactly. Slap people around a little.
Exactly.
Related to the last question, this is a very good follow-up. I'm always a little envious because our listeners who are with us live, a lot of times their questions are a little deeper than mine. So I admit to a little bit of envy. This is a good one. Are you having challenges staffing your security teams to support the digital transformation efforts post-COVID? And you had mentioned earlier that, the whole world of hiring has opened up to you, but that's also true for almost every
Everyone.
company. Yeah.
Look, I think there's a lot of ways to answer this. I think it's always hard to find great people. I don't think COVID changed that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in some ways, I think that there might be better retention now because people are leaving less.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the world,
Yep.
it's a lot more unknown. Parsons spends a lot of time recruiting. Not just minorities, but veterans.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to be as diverse of a company as possible, and there's always lessons to learn there, as we've seen recently. But so we look for talent in a lot of non-traditional ways, and so to directly answer the question, I have not, in my little microcosm, I have not seen it more harder to hire and retain in some of these technology areas. Again, I think things are working in our favor, and the ability to be able to have the constraints taken off to be able to hire someone that doesn't matter where they live.
Yeah.
It is actually pretty freeing.
And I think
So
it's ultimately going to change the IT talent market
it
in,
will.
in mostly good ways. But you're right. Everybody is in the same pool looking to catch the same fish.
Yeah, Parsons is in a good spot that we're growing pretty rapidly,
Yeah.
and we hire hundreds of people a month.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking, go to parsons.com, I guess. But uh, but we're always looking for new talent, and we have a great recruiting organization, which also is learning. We are all learning through this, and it is a very different way to think that it doesn't matter where people live. I know some companies are successful doing it, but let's face it, the majority of the companies don't do that.
Yeah, well, and
So
there was no impetus to do it.
that's right. So it required a shift.
Yeah.
Think about it. We've hired hundreds and hundreds of people at this point that we've never met in person, that's never been to an office.
You mentioned that.
If you think of it, and I guarantee most companies here have dealt with that, right? If you think about that, 6 months ago, would we have ever imagined
Mm-hmm.
that I would hire someone just off a video conference?
Yeah.
No, you have to change your recruiting mechanisms, your benefit mechanisms, and even how we provision PCs. As basic as that, we've had to change around our entire IT provisioning process and procedures because we want people to be as productive as we can. So we shoot for next day, or
Yeah.
same day, same day of your start date to have your PC and everything working.
Mm-hmm.
So to do that remotely, we had to change everything.
Yeah. Well, and we have another good question from our audience. What are the challenges you faced in maintaining a close partnership with your business stakeholders and doing it remotely? Was there anything that comes to mind for that?
So I believe the relationship between IT
Mm-hmm.
and the business, and I'm gonna go into more detail, is the most important thing that we have. If I miss a date on a project, if I mess something up, which I'm good at, right? Uh, uh, it all gets solved with the relationships. If you don't have a good relationship, then anything that may happen, any issues that come up, are just not going to be tolerated.
They're amplified.
They're amplified, right? I don't even view it as like I report to our COO, and I'm a peer with all the business leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even a corporate versus other, person doesn't really do that, right? So yeah, I mean, just we're all in it together. We're all and since we sell technology, we're all the business.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first place I've experienced that level of we're in it together, right? Not to say it's perfect, but right, but no one's perfect. But it doesn't matter if that's the case, like a Parsons, or if other companies where I've worked at where that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
The relationship is the most important thing, and I spend a lot of time with them on trying to help.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do? We're on top of issues they have. We actually have, for all of our business leaders, we actually have our own escalation process for when they have an issue.
Mm-hmm.
They can get right to one of our top people. I don't mean for their PC, but look, there's issues that happen. I always say it's technology, and 80% luck, and 20% is we did a good job. So stuff, as you've lived through your career as well, right?
Yeah.
So stuff's going to happen, and the communication channel is the most important thing. So we have an escalation process just for our market leaders when they're having a customer issue, or they're having a new employee's computer broke, and this person has to submit something critical. We don't want them to go through the regular support process. So we have an escalation process just for them.
Good.
And we have an IT steering committee that we meet monthly. At least we try to. Where and I'm fine with it being a gripe session. Tell me about all the issues. What's going on?
Yeah.
So
you can't fix it if you don't know it's broken.
That's right. That's right. My biggest frustration is the employees at Parsons were really good at keeping things to themselves. When something was broken or there was an issue, people didn't complain. And
years they were probably trying to fix it themselves.
Yeah. And you know what happened? So I'm having an issue on my computer, and who do I call for help? The person sitting next to me. Yeah. Now I have two people who are not working, and they asked the third person, right? You got three people not working. So we entice people. We've upgraded our help desk, and we've done some incredible stuff. We actually partner with Dr. Art Langer at Columbia, and he has a great company called Workforce Opportunity Services, which hires underserved veterans. And our entire support desk is staffed by WOS and underserved veterans.
Good. I was hoping you would talk about the work that you're doing with Art.
And that itself has raised the bar, because because you know who you're calling. You know what that person has accomplished, and that's been a fantastic success as well. And so it really is about all of these different. So we scaled up the support desk just for that very reason, because that is a better business alignment. You can't spend money in a better place than making everybody happy with the help desk, right?
Yeah. Sure.
It's the smallest amount of investment that touches the most people.
I remember, I think it was probably our 2019 CIO 100 Innovation Awards. One of the big winners that year was a division of General Electric, and they had essentially consolidated and taken in-house all of their help desks around the world.
Right.
They saved a ton of money, but their net promoter scores, their happiness scores from their users went through the roof. They went from a negative number to a hugely positive number.
And that's the thing with WS and the veterans, it is in-house.
Yeah.
Like it's not an outsourcing arrangement. It's
based in New York. Yeah.
They're based in New York, and actually most of our people are in Dallas. And it is like, it's more of a expertise sourcing and recruiting arrangement.
Yeah. Yeah.
than it is an outsourcing deal, right? So
Right. Now, we've been talking a lot about all the things that you're doing through IT. And I know I mentioned earlier that Parsons has 20,000 employees. You don't have 10,000 IT people. Talk about the size and scope of your IT department. Mhm.
yeah, without throwing out an exact number here, we have a few hundred people in IT.
Mhm.
And it's just hard because it varies based on projects, based on we have a pretty good sized team in the Middle East, in Dubai, that we do a lot of work for the Saudi government for construction, and rail, and for the UAE. So we spend a good amount of time there
Mhm.
doing work. And so yeah, so we don't have a large IT organization for the size of our company. At least that's my opinion. And But we are extremely focused, and we look, and it forces us to relentlessly prioritize. And that is the key to success. I Success for me is to have our business leaders be really upset with IT because this is going to sound counterintuitive here, but I want everyone to be upset with IT because they have so many needs that we can't get to. But they know we've captured their need, and they know where it is in a priority list.
Transparency, then.
It is all about transparency. So I have a fantastic team that does all of our business and our BI, AI, ML work. We've created hundreds of reports this year, with hundreds more to go. That is truly giving a different level of transparency to our business leaders to make faster and better decisions, including IT.
Mhm.
So we have all IT metrics on a real-time dashboard that everyone in the business can see,
Yeah.
and they can click on there and they can look at everything from the help desk to our carbon footprint and recycling,
Mhm.
and to project lists. They can sort by themselves and see their project requests, and it's a constant reevaluation of the priorities. I'm always asking, are we working on the right stuff
Yeah.
in the right order?
Well, you've mentioned productivity being a huge issue for you because a lot of CIOs that I've talked with since the crisis started, have said that, yeah, productivity may be going up in IT departments everywhere, but you don't want to be doing it at the cost of people's sanity. You don't want it to be that they're now working 20 hours a day from home. I know that you feel very strongly about this. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So look, I have three levers, right? I have making people work nights and weekends.
Hmm.
Let's call that one lever, which I will not pull, right? Look, it's IT. There's always emergencies, so we're not talking about that, right? There is the amount of time I have to do something,
Hmm.
and then there is the quality I'm going to deliver it at,
Okay.
right? So quality, time, and work nights and weekends to get stuff to do more, right? The answer is not. So when we did 6 months of work in 2.5 weeks for our remote access work, right?
Yeah.
We did not do 6 months of work. We didn't have the same 8 people or whatever that project was going to be
Right.
do 6 months of work in 2.5 weeks. We
Well,
scaled.
but he wasn't expected to do all their regular stuff in addition.
That's right? Because it doesn't work that way. People don't want to work nights and weekends,
Mhm.
and the quality, there's a direct correlation to quality.
Yes.
So, and I'm not willing to deliver something at a low quality just because of a crisis.
Mhm.
There's gonna Let's not blame COVID. There's always crisis in IT, and there always will be.
Mhm.
And so therefore you have to have a repeatable, supportable process. But so we didn't have people work nights and weekends. We just put a lot more people on it. So
You
the resource lever,
Yeah. There was
right?
one of the questions had, is talking about COVID cutbacks in staffing. You didn't have that at Parsons, but there is the question about whether this is a good time to engage contractors on new IT projects, or whether you just personally are focused on keeping projects in-house. I mean, as priorities have shifted around, are you more likely now than you were 6 months ago to bring in outside contractors?
So I'm generally not a big fan of outside contractors to
Mm.
do new work,
Oh, okay.
right? So whenever, and I mean, I've spent my career in IT, and I probably had sadly, most IT positions at this point, from the help desk
Come on.
up, right?
Actually have patents in some of this stuff, so don't give me that say.
Okay, but I've been around the block, I guess.
Yeah.
And I hated when management brought in contractors to work on the new stuff,
Oh,
and
yeah.
employees worked on all the old stuff.
Mm,
Like, to me, that creates a very bad organization over time. You may
yeah.
get the work done and you may get it out there, but over time you do not have the right organization.
It's like a caste
So
system in IT.
yeah. So we really do our best to. I've always done this in my career, when it was within my control, to, when you need to bring in a contractor, bring them in to support the old stuff, and you have your people work on the new stuff, because that's your future.
Yeah.
Because I bring contractors in, they implement some new system, and then they leave, and then I can't properly support it, and it gets a bad rap. And IT, you deployed this piece of garbage that we don't like, and there's a translation into quality when you do it that way.
Okay.
And now, it's not always perfect. Sometimes I might have to bring someone in to get us up to speed,
Hmm.
and to help move a project along, or to meet a timeline. But I'm not bringing in an entire team to work on just the new stuff.
Hmm.
I view it as a staff augmentation. And so therefore, no, we're pretty light on consulting, and we did not, well, I mean, we're always evaluating the organization for effectiveness, but no, we didn't, let people go for COVID.
Hmm.
Um, and for the most part, Parsons was able to maintain that kind of thinking as well.
Yeah.
And look, but I've been in environments where where you do let a lot of people go for different reasons, and where there's a dramatic business shift. COVID is not the only reason that happens.
Right.
And as the CIO, you have to get relentlessly focused on what you work on and the priority. It's the
Hmm.
only two levers that you have,
Hmm.
to do it.
Well, and when we talked about this earlier too, and we're kind of segueing into leadership advice and that sort of thing, but it was around productivity, and you had said that the productivity is the thing with all the potential, and that you look at what you can help improve and what you deliver to customers, and everything else falls under employee productivity and what's essentially keeping people happy. And is that where your three levers come in,
Yeah,
avoiding work on weekends and
you got it. Number one is our employees above all else.
yeah.
And I want people to be happy and excited to come to work. And
Mhm.
I try to create an environment, we'll talk about that, but I try to create an environment that when you get out of bed, you really
Yeah.
want to come in, right? That includes how I behave as a leader, as
Mhm.
well as what we work on.
Yeah.
Um, I Number two is customers. So what do I have to do to make our customers successful? And number three is our employees' productivity.
Yep.
Now, depending on the mood, you can argue the order of those. So I didn't mean them as a priority necessarily, right? Because if you don't have employee productivity, you're not going to deliver for customers. So you could argue
Yeah.
what the right order is.
How has, and I know this is not a brand new thing with you. I know in the past we've talked about productivity and where IT fits and all that and what it can be doing better and that sort of thing. But since you've come to Parsons in the last year and a half, well, we had talked about your ongoing digital transformation. And I always think it's good to dive into that fabulous, glittery buzzword and explain what it really means. So, and I know that transformations are never done, that by the very nature of them, you need to keep adapting and improving and changing. But give us a little bit more detail about what the arc of that digital transformation is at Parsons. Where are you coming from and where are you going to?
Yes. So Parsons is a company with an enormous amount of data. right? From we have to store things forever. You can't build a bridge and then just have your document retention policies run out on it and you delete it, right? 20 years later. So we have an enormous amount of data, and we have a fairly dispersed company, right? Even though it was in facilities in the past, we're pretty spread out all over the country, and that leads to in some ways a lack of productivity. We're going to get back to the productivity aspect of it, right? And when you start to really look at it, going into the future, are our data centers in the right places? Are they scaled appropriately? Since we do a lot of work for governments, we're always going to have our own data centers for regulatory reasons. And are they scaled the right way? Do they deliver the right services? How are we thinking about the cloud? And what does the cloud even mean? That there's another buzzword, right? So and then that can distract you, because in reality, and you and I have talked about this for years, it really comes, of course, down to the data. Are we getting the right data to the right person at the right time?
Yeah, stewardship of the data. Yeah.
You got it, right? And you have to start there. And that's why some of my biggest investments are in our data science area. And in some ways, I'm having that. Of course, the business drives that, and I'm having that drive the rest of IT to deliver what new capabilities and technologies that we have. And just in this, so at a high level for our digital transformation is much bigger investments in reporting, dashboarding, real-time capability, and then aligning what we do in IT with where our business is around AI, ML, BI, and then our business actually has quite a large IoT. If you think about traffic and sensors and all the stuff out there, right? So we stay aligned with that, and then we have that drive the requirements for the rest of IT. So we are establishing new data centers. We are moving as many workloads as we can from our on-premise environments into hosted environments. We've put policies in place around a buy versus build where it makes sense. And Parsons, being such a brilliantly capable company, has also would lean in the past towards build, which doesn't really get us to where we need to be now. Great decisions in the past, but not great decisions today.
Right.
So we want to, so you have that, and then SaaS environments where it makes sense, really as our first priority, and then we actually sell some of these services to customers as well, because we're a provider of technology. So we've created different environments. For example, we have an open environment, which is where our commercial business is. We have a protected environment, which is where some sensitive data is, and then we have a secure environment, right, for the most secure work that we do. So you're not going to get that kind of alignment without understanding where the data has to go, by when, who, where's it, So we let that's the way I would define our digital transformation, is getting real-time data to the right person at the right time, and everything else falling behind that on what we have to do to deliver that.
Okay. Well, and you mentioned a lot of our favorite data acronyms these days: ML for machine learning, and of course artificial intelligence, and internet.
Yeah, I think of it as, for 2020 at least, it's a really big BI.
Business intelligence.
It's it's a little bit smaller machine learning.
Okay.
It's a really small artificial intelligence. If you think about that as like a tiered, I expect over time the artificial intelligence grows, the business intelligence shrinks.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, If you have artificial intelligence with machine learning, you need BI is I've done more work to create these environments. I need to do less predefining. So
Yeah,
the
BI,
BI shrinks, the business intelligence shrinks.
BI always strikes me as a lot about the tools and the dashboards that are delivering all of the data that has maybe been
Yeah,
pulled
yeah,
from systems and predictive analytics and that.
exactly. I think of BI as dashboards. That's real-time data.
Yeah. Well, and are there any other emerging tech trends that you are paying special attention to? Because as I mentioned, you are a deep tech guy, and in your heart, you still like playing with technology.
No, not me.
Not me,
Uh, um, you
truth or
know,
dare. Yeah.
I mean, generally speaking, I think 3D printing is enormous.
Mhm.
Um, I have a 3D printer at home and I'm printing a camera, right?
Wow.
It's pretty incredible. We do a lot of it at Parsons. We've been able to muster our entire company to print tens of thousands of PPE masks. I'm sure many companies have done this, but I see 3D printing moving to a point where I can print devices
Mhm.
and not just an object.
Mhm.
So I think, and of course, spending 16 years in the medical field, I know that we're going to get to 3D printed body parts, right? So or organs and stuff like that. So I'm excited about that. I think blockchain, and maybe not in its current form,
Mhm.
but the ability to have a truly distributed, trusted source of data will drive things going forward in the future.
Mhm.
And then I think we've only begun to touch AI and even IoT. I yet can't throw my shirt into the washer and have it tell the washer how to set it and how to clean it. I know
Mhm.
it can be done, but it's not a normal thing that we can buy, right? So
Right.
I definitely see that happening. And on Parsons, we spend a lot of time on IoT as well. That's Internet of Things for those that may not realize.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's only just begun too. The gas pump knowing what kind of car you have, and
Right. Right.
I think that's going to explode much further. And look, there's a single message here for IT, which is integrations.
There you go. We're back to that. I know. I was surprised when you and I were talking about all of your
Full circle.
about technology in full circle.
Full
And
circle. I can put in any number of systems that I want that do great things. If none of them talk to each other in a way that can be supported, it's not going to matter.
well, that way, maybe over the years, we've all been debating what CIO stands for, Chief Information Officer, Influence Officer. I know some CIOs who are Chief Information and Integration Officers for that reason. And
Right.
the very famous and well-regarded Charlie Feld of the Feld Institute, and probably one of the most famous CIOs we ever talked with at Computer World, has always been on that Chief Integration Officer band.
Yeah, yeah. And then of course we have the career is over.
I hate that one. I never bring that one up. On you for bringing that up. Yeah, it's like the Scarlet A for alignment, you know? The only people that say that anymore are either analysts that are trying to sell you a report or their chief marketing officers who didn't get along with their CIOs.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I mean, you're living proof of how much success you can have.
Well, I do agree with you that the chief integration officer is
Mhm.
probably the most apropos these days.
Well, and I used to talk a lot about, I describe the way CIOs know so much about everything that's happening in the company. And we used to talk about the helicopter view of IT and all the rest of the business. But I've abandoned that now because that implies floating above it all. Like IT is off up in their helicopter while the rest of the business is doing stuff. The one I like now is IT as a central nervous system.
Yeah.
And I think, and of course with your medical CIO background, that would fit right in. But I think the
And
one.
look, we all have a unique unique view of the company. We touch every aspect of it, and it's really a shame that if ID departments don't take advantage of that.
Yes. Well, and as we're wrapping up here in our last minute, I know I asked you to think about this in advance, and I want you to give a piece of advice or two about either to your colleagues as CIOs as they're dealing with this existential new abnormal that we're all living through now, or as people that are aspiring to be CIOs. What are some of Stuart Kippelman's great pieces of advice for us to sign off with?
Well, look, aspiring people aspiring to be CIO, my best advice is to get as many different varied experiences as you can. Don't stay siloed in one area. I grew up in the infrastructure side, and it took me too long to move into the application development space. I would have liked to have done that earlier in my career. Don't get fixated on one job. Try to think about it. Think about your IT career as as I'm going to try out many different things throughout the time, and you should push yourself to do that.
Yeah.
The CIOs that are going through this and living in this world, I think that to think that this is a one-time event is a false direction. I think we all have now. Maybe it's not a pandemic. Maybe it's something else. But we live in a little bit of a crazy world. And look, I remember. I'm sure a lot of people will laugh when I say this. I remember people saying, "Hey, this whole virtualized servers and data centers is the biggest change we'll ever see. We're going from physical servers to virtual servers, and the performance can't be there." So there's always going to be some transformation in IT. That's the nature of what we do.
Yeah.
And the most successful CIOs will build to an environment that can change, not to just solve the current crisis.
Excellent. Very good advice. Thank you so much for joining me today, Stuart.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
It was
Always a pleasure.
talking with you, as it always is.
Always.
Okay, if you joined us late, this is CIO Leadership Live. Do not despair. You can watch the full episode, my entire interview with Stuart. We'll have it posted later on today on CIO.com. And it will also be showing up on our YouTube channel, which is called IDG Tech Talk. And I highly recommend that you sign up for that as well. You can also catch us as an audio podcast. All of our CIO Leadership Live interviews are on podcast players, whatever player you use, we have parked ourselves on there. So by all means, download us and listen to us. I was going to say listen to us on the commute, but our commutes tend to be a little shorter these days. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed my conversation today with Stuart Kippelman. He is the CIO of Parsons Corporation. And I hope you will join me for my next Leadership Live show, which will be on Wednesday, July 22nd at noon Eastern. And I'll be joined by Darren Ash, who is the Assistant CIO of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Stay safe and stay well, and we'll see you here next time. Thank you.